Yes, good morning again. Günaydın. Ohayo gozaimasu. I think we can start now. Dear ambassadors, fellow academics, ladies and gentlemen, and dear participants, I greet you all respectfully. Welcome to our international panel, New World in Post-COVID Period, Perception from Turkey and Japan, organized by the Ankara University Asia Pacific Research Center, APAM, with the support of the Japanese Embassy. The COVID pandemic has negatively affected Turkey and indeed the entire world in areas such as health, economics, and trade. It is entirely plausible to think that these effects will continue for another year or two. Countries that can predict what will happen in the future will suffer less, I think. Therefore, we decided to organize this panel to solicit the opinions Turkish and Japanese experts. With your permission, I would like to offer a brief introduction to APAM. Our center was established in 2014 and we began our operations in early 2017. So far, we have published 10 books in Turkish and English on various countries and regions. Apart from that, we have organized more than 10 international symposiums, panels, and painting and photo exhibitions related to various countries and regions. In these 3 years, estimated academics have come to our center as short-term guest researchers from Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and Azerbaijan. We have plans to publish 4 more books at our center this year. My name is Professor Dr. Mertan Dündar, and I am full-time professor of Japanese language and literature here at Ankara University. I am also the founding director of the Asia Pacific Research Center, APAM, for short, and head of our university's Global and Regional Studies Department. I would like to express my gratitude to the Embassy of Japan and Mr. Ambassador, His Excellency Suzuki Kazuhiro, who contributed greatly to the realization of this event. I leave the floor to His Excellency Suzuki Kazuhiro for opening remarks. Mr. Ambassador, if you please.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Professor Dündar. And good morning, those who are watching this event in Turkey, and good afternoon, those in Tokyo. As the co-host of this online symposium today, I am very much pleased and honored to welcome distinguished scholars and experts, very active both in Turkey and in Japan. I'd also like to thank Ankara University, the Asia Pacific Research Center, APAM, for organizing this very timely event. We have already marked 1-year milestone since WHO's official declaration of COVID-19 pandemic, but all of us are still struggling to overcome this challenge to mankind. Our Prime Minister, Mr. Suga Yoshihide, has emphasized the need to realize a united world, not a divided world, in the face of this enormous challenge. Indeed, we must show our international solidarity in the areas of not only immediate infectious disease countermeasures, but also economic and social recovery measures, including towards those developing countries that have been hit severely. We must also render our help to those under vulnerable conditions, such as refugees from Syria, or those who still live in conflict areas. The policy dialogues are needed now more than ever in order for us to cooperate effectively to overcome these daunting tasks. But at the same time, we are currently under extreme global travel restrictions. I believe, therefore, webinars such as today's will provide an excellent opportunity for us to brainstorm our ideas. With regard to various cooperation between Japan and Turkey, I think they can be divided into 2 broad categories, namely bilateral and regional. First, our bilateral aspect. Simply put, Japan-Turkey relationship has been basically very, very good. Both Turkish people's perception of Japan and Japanese people's perception of Turkey are outstandingly and almost permanently very good. Based on this positive background, our cooperation have evolved in various areas, such as infrastructure building, disaster prevention, academic, and cultural fields. In order to bring our cooperation into the next level, two endeavors are currently underway between our two governments. First, trade negotiation for Japan-Turkey Economic Partnership Agreement. And second, the preparation for establishing the Turkey-Japan Science and Technology University in Turkey. These two instruments, if realized, would bring us enormous opportunities for furthering investment and scientific cooperation between the two countries. And any new ideas to strengthen our bilateral cooperations are very welcome today. Second layer of our cooperation is coordinating our regional initiatives. Japan has been promoting efforts towards the realization of a free and open Indo-Pacific. We call it FOIP, F-O-I-P. Since Turkey is a strategic linchpin of Europe, Asia, and Africa, enhancing connectivity in a wide range of regions by FOIP will be a great advantage to Turkey. I believe the FOIP and Turkey's new regional initiative, the Asia New, are mutually complementary as a concept. Japan has historically and geographically stronger ties with regions such as the Far East, Southeast Asia, the Oceania, and the Pacific, whereas Turkey has stronger connections with the Middle East, Africa, and Central Asia. Turkey and Japan are located on the western and the eastern edge of the Eurasian continent, respectively, and our geographical form grounds are quite different. Even from this single viewpoint, I believe that benefits accruing from coordinating and cooperating the two regional initiatives are very clear. So let me close my remarks here by hoping that lively discussions today will give us useful food for thought and will lead us to constructive new ideas. Thank you for your kind attention. Teşekkür ederim. Thank you.
Yes, His Excellency, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your speech. Please, we want to make more, these kinds of academic meetings and publications. We want to continue our collaboration with the Embassy of Japan. Thank you very much again. Yes, our first speaker is Dr. Altay Atlı of the Boğaziçi University Asian Studies Center. I would like to provide a brief introduction. Dr. Altay Atlı is the founding director of Atlı Global, an Istanbul-based consultancy offering advisory services on global economic affairs. He is also a lecturer at the Boğaziçi University Asian Studies program, the Turkish National Defense University International Relations program, and the Koç University Executive MBA program. The title of Dr. Atlı's speech is Rethinking Turkey's Economic Engagement with the Asia-Pacific for the Post-Pandemic Era. Dr. Atlı, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor. Dear ambassadors, Ambassador Suzuki, Ambassador Darama, professors, colleagues, friends, greetings to you all from Istanbul, and it's a privilege for me to be addressing such a distinguished panel today, and thank you very much to APAM for the opportunity. And I'll be talking about Turkey's economic engagement with the Asia-Pacific with a focus on, what can come next in the post-pandemic period. And let me share my, yes, I think it's working. Let me share my slides. I have just a few visuals, so not a lot of slides here. Rethinking Turkey's economic engagement with the Asia-Pacific for the post-pandemic era. Now, when you talk about Turkey's economic engagement with the Asia-Pacific, for years now, if not decades, the first thing that is coming to our attention, that is coming to the attention of the public opinion is, the trade deficit. So the keyword is here. And you can see the extent of the trade deficit as of the year 2020 here. A select number of, the major economies of the Asia Pacific. And the blue columns are Turkey's exports to those economies in last year. And the red columns are what we are importing back. So as you can see, well, it's about the trade deficit for Turkey. And the major source of the deficit, not only with respect to the Asia Pacific, but in overall bilateral merchandise trade of Turkey is the major source is China, as you can see here. Now, this is the picture. And given this picture, for long years in Turkey, we thought about, how to close this deficit. And when I say we, I don't only talk about, the academic circles, but also the business community and also, the government bureaucracy. So the idea was until let's say the early 2000s, the idea was how to close this deficit. How can we close this? But as we discussed more about, how we can close this deficit, the deficit itself grew further. Now, and this is the picture now. Now, but then came a change. Then came a change in the mentality, and then came a change in the thinking and how to put this thinking into practice. So now we started to think about, well, this deficit cannot be really closed down like in a fortnight. So we need to think about ways to balance it. So how to balance it? Now, this picture is about the merchandise trade, but in services trade, Turkey is actually not a deficit country. Turkey is a surplus country. So how can we, at least partially balance this on the services side, especially services of tourism, which is the major, the leading source of revenue when it comes to services for Turkey. But other than that, it's basic economics rule. You have a deficit on the current account side. How do we, you need to balance it on the capital side. So how do we balance it? By getting more capital from the Asian countries. So the thinking has come to change. But when we look at this picture, and I think this picture is important because really, whenever we talk about Turkey and Asia, we start talking about the trade deficit. But this trade deficit is also happening for a reason. Well, it's the free market economy. I mean, Turkish importers are importing from China, from Korea, from Japan for a reason. Now, I think there's a fuller half of the glass and an empty half of glass here. Well, empty half is, well, the deficit is, well, not desirable for the economy in the long term. Okay, fine. But on the fuller half of the glass, some of the imports, not all maybe, but a significant portion of imports from Asia is actually also good for the Turkish economy because, well, to start with, Turkish economy is dependent on imported intermediary products and components for its own production and therefore for its own exports. So if you import such products, intermediary products for your own production, raw materials perhaps, high quality components. So this is actually adding some value to your own production. And it's, well, we are living in the age of globalization, and it's also very difficult to really understand what these imports are made of. Like, I mean, you see the pictures here, you see the red columns, but look at China. I mean, such a huge import volume there, but most of the, not most, but a significant part of these imports from China are actually not Chinese products. Well, we are talking about value chains, global production chains, networks, and so on. Most of the Western companies are using the supply chains in China, and when these final products are imported to Turkey, they are entering, well, this red column here. They are, well, officially made in China. So what I'm saying is we have this trade deficit, but we need to understand the contents of this deficit as well. So I talked about one way of establishing some kind of balance. Given this picture is to draw more investment to Turkey, and here I'm talking about direct investment. Now, again, some recent numbers here. If when we talk about FDI into Turkey, well, the major source of FDI into Turkey is Europe, and is more than 70% of all the FDI in Turkey is from Europe, and this is mostly the European Union. I mean, the European Union accounts for 63% of all the FDI in Turkey. Now, the thing is, and this is, I mean, this is the fact. Now, like almost 10 years ago, we wrote an article with my professor and my mentor, Professor Selçuk Esenbel, who is now here. I can see her here now. And I mean, we were looking at these relations and we were looking at the numbers. And the numbers were not really different back then. So Europe was, again, the leading source of FDI. Then comes the Middle East and especially the Gulf. And Asian share in Turkish FDI stock is around 5%. Okay, and you can also look inside the FDI from Asia, and you can see the picture on the right-hand side. Almost, well, more than 40% of FDI in Asian FDI in Turkey is from Japan. And well, China is very much in the news these days because of all this, well, excitement about the Belt and Road project and all the, well, but also the hype surrounding it and so on. But the thing is, Japanese, and if you ask me, South Korean investment in Turkey, I'm talking about foreign direct investment. I mean, the kind of investment that establishes a long-term presence in your economy, produces, generates revenues, generates export revenues, generates employment, adds to technology transfer, and so on. And Japan and South Korea have a much longer presence here in the Turkish economy, and I'll come to that in a second. So this is the picture. Now I'm coming to my point. So what is changing now? So what is COVID telling us? What is, I mean, we are all experiencing this. See, I'm home, everybody's actually literally home. And we know very well how the economies are experiencing this, very well. But what about, I mean, how should we think about the post-COVID period for our economy, for the global economy as well? I think four things will be very important in the post-COVID period. I mean, these are the lessons, I think, that COVID is teaching us. One thing, self-sufficiency will be very important. Well, globalization has brought increasing dependencies, interdependencies, like countries trading with each other, countries investing in each other, establishing dependencies, fine, seeking efficiency, seeking cost reduction, and so on. But COVID has taught us that, well, the more you dependent, the more you depend on others, the more you are fragile. So the thing is, you cannot get rid of dependence. I mean, this is still a global world, but especially in vital areas like healthcare, like food, like energy, you need to improve your capabilities so that you increase your self-sufficiency. And the second thing is, in areas where you depend on others, on other countries, you need to diversify. Because this is not only the pandemic world, this is also the world of the trade wars. And we see this not only between China and the United States, but in many parts of the world. So, and this is teaching us a lesson as well. If you depend on others, which will have to be the case, well, you need to diversify your partners so that you are not vulnerable. Sustainability, this was always important, but COVID has taught us we don't have time to lose. Now, and it's not only about public health, but in the new economy, in the new global economy, well, it will be about the health of the, it will be more about public health, it will be more about the well-being of the individuals, it will be more about the climate and the environment, because COVID has taught us also. Sometimes we are not really taking this environmental issue serious, but when something happens, it will hit us very hard. And we have seen that with COVID. So it will be more about sustainability and digitalization, of course. Digital technologies existed before pandemic, but now, well, come on. I mean, we are doing this digitally, this meeting. So digitalization will not only protect us from the pandemic and so on, but it will also help improve productivity and efficiency for national economies. Now, my argument today is for Turkey, increasing economic cooperation with the countries of the Asia Pacific, despite the trade deficit, and doing so through direct investment projects, and by getting more direct investment from Asian countries. For Turkey, this will mean, support of Turkey's efforts in all these 4 areas. Self-sufficiency is about improving your capabilities, own capabilities. Now, we have seen with the Japanese and Korean examples that, this automotive factories, these chemical factories, and so on, well, they are producing here. They are not only creating employment. They are also adding, for example, to technological capabilities of Turkey. They are investing in research and development. They are employing Turkish engineers who are working with Japanese engineers. And Ambassador Suzuki just told us about, the efforts to, activate the Turkish-Japanese Science University. So these are, more investment, more cooperation like that means support for Turkey's pursuit of increasing its own capabilities. Diversification, I showed you the pictures. Most of the investment in Turkey is from the West. Half of Turkish exports are going to Europe. This is good. This will remain so, but you need to diversify. Work more with Asian countries. This is more diversification. Digitalization and sustainability as well, because through this investments from Japan, from Korea, and from China, other Asian countries, the further progress they make in these areas, Turkey will be able to benefit, and Turkey will be able to take part in the processes to advance in these areas. Okay, so this is my argument today, and I'm not telling you a new story. We started seeing this. With the Japanese and Korean investment coming 80s, 90s to Turkey. So there have been examples, but with COVID, this is becoming more vital and more important. Well, when it comes to Asian investment in Turkey, we know some of the household names. This is really random. I just wanted to pick, because there are much more of this, but just some random examples. Some of them are household names. Some of them, most people don't know about. But all these investments and much more, I can also add other countries like, for example, most people traveling to the Sabiha Gökçen Airport in Istanbul don't really realize that it's actually a Malaysian investment there, and so on. We can increase the numbers. But I'm talking about all of this foreign direct investments from Asia. They will support Turkish economy not by balancing the dollar numbers, trade deficit, well, $10 million. We get $10 million of capital, so we have balance. It's not just about that. It's about, working together to create value together, which will be important for Turkey in the post-COVID period. So, finally, I want to close with these numbers as well. This is the list of the Istanbul Chamber of Commerce. Every year they publish this list of the top 500 companies in Turkey. And so I had this list, and I took out the companies with Asian investment, with Asian participation. And well, the list is made according to the sales they are making in the Turkish market. So some of the major Asian investments are not actually in this list. But this again gives you a picture of the extent of the Asian involvement in Turkish economy. You can see that the highest number of companies are from Japan. You see a number of Korean companies as well. Thailand was a bit surprising for me that They are making, they are at the top of the list of in terms of revenues. But the list can go on, and well, these are, all of them are not only making sales in Turkey. They are also, investing in research and development, investing in innovation. They are employing people. They are paying taxes. They are adding to the export portfolio of Turkey. Now, Turkey is one of the biggest export items of Turkey is automobiles. I mean, who is producing this automobiles? Well, you can see them in the list. They will be more important in the post-COVID period, and simply because of their, this is my main argument, and I close with that, they will, contribute more to Turkish economy in these 4 areas that will be important in the post-COVID period. And I leave it here, and I thank you very much for listening to me.
Yes, thank you very much. Esteemed Dr. Atlı has shared with us important information and opinions about the future of Turkey's economy. We thank him very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Atlı. Yes, our second speaker is Ambassador Nilvana Darama of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Turkey, Asia ENU coordinator. I would like to briefly introduce Ambassador Darama for the Turkish Ministry of Foreign Affairs. After working in important departments, she served as Turkey's ambassador to Belarus. Presently, she is the coordinator of the Republic of Turkey Ministry of Foreign Affairs and has been working for the Asia ENU initiative. Today, the esteemed ambassador's speech is entitled Turkey's Asia ENU initiative, challenges and opportunities for the cooperation in the post-COVID world. Your Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Professor Dündar. Good morning to those participants joining us from today, and good afternoon, Japan. I wish to thank APAM and the Embassy of Japan for initiating this event. It's indeed very timely and relevant. And thank you for the opportunity to address such a diverse audience. Today, I'm going to talk about Turkey's Asia ENU initiative and prospects for cooperation with Turkey in the post-COVID world. Dr. Atlı has provided us with a very good ground to build our discussions on, and I think my remarks will be complementary. The Asia ENU initiative was introduced about 1.5 years ago by Minister Çavuşoğlu, and it aims to take a fresh look into Turkey's relations with Asian countries. Turkey intends to broaden its cooperation in Asia at bilateral and regional levels on the basis of shared interests and objectives. Of course, Asia is a huge continent with vast political, economic, social, and cultural diversity. And our initiative encompasses Central Asia, South Asia, Southeast Asia, and East Asia. Russia and Iran are also included. We therefore adopt a country-specific and sub-regional approach rather than a uniform one-size-fits-all strategy. With Japan, of course, we have deep-rooted relations and we are strategic partners. We believe there is a significant potential for expanding the scope of our bilateral agenda, particularly in the economic field under the Asia ENU initiative. Turkey has clear goals in its foreign policy. We seek peace, prosperity, and security in our region and beyond. And we are determined to intensify our relations on this basis across all parts of the world. But today, the center of gravity between East and West is once again shifting, and the rise of Asia is one of the defining characteristics of our century. Dynamics unfolding in Asia is of great importance to any country with a stake in the future of global politics, economics, and society. And as the natural gateway between Asia and Europe, Turkey is well placed to become an effective stakeholder in this transformation, and of course in Pan-Asian cooperation. Well, global scene is changing, and it's creating a context that holds both challenges and opportunities for all our countries. For more than a year now, the world has been facing one of the most complex challenges of history, and the COVID-19 has infected more than 100 million people and killed 2.5 million as of end February. It has also economic consequences. The Global Economic Outlook report released by the OECD shows that the global GDP fell by 4.2% in 2020. Economies dependent on trade, tourism, foreign remittances, hydrocarbons have felt the strain even more. And government stimulus packages have become the main driver of business and job security, adding the extra burden on fiscal policies. Well, we see disruption of supply chains due to travel restrictions, dropping consumption, domestic consumption, difficulties in accessing basic medical and food supplies, rise of discriminatory and racist sentiments in many societies, and vulnerable groups are hurt even more. And these are the weaknesses of the current system. But we also know that the crisis brings opportunities, particularly by provoking innovation and accelerating changes that have already been in place. We must face the challenges together and jointly explore opportunities, both in traditional and new areas of cooperation. We must identify areas where we complement each other and unite our strengths. And that's what we are trying to do under Asia New Initiative in Asia. Turkey, on her part, is an economic powerhouse with a fast-growing economy, market, enabling environment for investments and dynamic business community. Our geographical proximity to key markets make Turkey an ideal hub for investments and commerce. As you know, within 4 hours of flight from Turkey, easy access is possible to multiple markets of more than 25 trillion GDP, 1.3 billion people. It's a huge, huge market. Thanks to some key reforms introduced during previous decades, our economy has become one of the most resilient in the world. Of course, we have our own difficulties. We are not immune from difficulties, but this is the case. Despite the pandemic, Turkey recorded 1.8% economic growth in 2020, faster than all G20 economies except China. We have received over 225 billion US dollars of foreign direct investment inflow from 2003 to date. And this is not by coincidence, as Turkey offers a lucrative environment for investors. With its growing economy, with its young and dynamic skilled workforce, with its logistic infrastructure, efficient service sector, and with sophisticated manufacturing. More recently, incentives have been devised to attract particularly high added value investments. And this would integrate Turkey into the global value chain. We now have special incentives offered for technology incentives, technology-intensive investments, strategic investments, priority sectors we have identified, and particularly R&D incentives and project-based incentives for mega projects. So these are all available for foreign investors. Energy is one field of common interest which offers substantial potential cooperation. I should here cite the exemplary partnership between Turkish and Japanese companies, Karpowership, floating power plant company of Turkey, and Mitsui O.S.K. Lines, a shipping company of Japan. Their Carmel joint venture's first floating storage regasification unit is set to begin sea trials now. Indeed, a diversification of energy resources and routes with a view to ensuring energy supply and price security constitutes the core of Turkey's multidimensional energy strategy. This is we see potential in cooperation. You know, Turkey has realized Bakü-Tbilisi-Ceyhan, Bakü-Tbilisi-Erzurum, Trans-Anatolian and Türkstream oil and gas line projects. We now have a central role for enhancing energy supply and price security in a broader region. We have a success story in renewables, which constitute almost 50% of our electricity installed power. Turkey ranks 16th in Europe and 13th in the world in terms of the share renewables of installed capacity. Geothermal has also a role to play in our energy mix. Turkey is one of the 5 countries in the world with installed geothermal capacity accessing 1 gigawatt. Also, Turkey is a major transport and logistics hub. We have concluded mega infrastructure projects in recent years. We have completed the Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge, Marmara Rail, built by a Turkish-Japanese consortium, and Eurasia tunnels connecting Asia to Europe, and we put them into service. We opened the Marmara Sea to traffic in the direction of north-south with the Osman Gazi Bridge. The Bakü-Tbilisi-Kars Railway and Edirne-Kars high-speed train projects are underway, so is Çanakkale Bridge on the Dardanelles. Our Trans-Caspian Middle Corridor initiative, it aims at revitalization of the historical Silk Road. It serves for connectivity between East and West. This is transportation, also construction. That's another sector where Turkish companies can develop mutually beneficial partnership, including in third countries with their Japanese counterparts. We have reputable and experienced companies in every aspect of construction, from design to architecture and engineering. They have proven themselves with mega projects all around the world. These are large prospects. There are large prospects for cooperation in construction sector in Central Asia, Africa, and also in Asia Pacific. Like Ambassador Suzuki mentioned, we have knowledge of our neighborhood, and we can work on this in these regions together. It's also high time to expand digital connectivity and secure our supply chains and fortify business resilience and financial strength. Turkey aims at developing substantially more of multifaceted links with Asia, including through political relations, development cooperation, environmental cooperation, science and technology. Technical cooperation is an important element of economic relations. Dr. Atlı has also mentioned Japan's International Cooperation Agency has undertaken important technical assistance projects in Turkey. That's since 1960s. And we have now finalized the technical cooperation agreement, and that will open us new horizons to expand cooperation with Japan. We are now looking forward to finalizing the economic partnership agreement. It will help us achieve a mutually beneficial and also balanced trade. Well, with strengthened focus on the region under our Asia and EU initiative, Turkey is ready to work closely with Japan in all these areas and others. Ambassador Suzuki mentioned the FOIP. Japan is now promoting the cooperation under this scheme. And as I have stated at the beginning, the Asia and EU initiative also is not confined to bilateral cooperation. We believe in the importance of homegrown regional cooperation initiatives, and we set to pursue the purposes of Asia and EU initiative also through active participation in multilateral regional platforms. Turkey's main message in these platforms is the promotion of cooperation and solidarity with a view to building healthy, resilient, and sustainable societies across Asia. Both Turkey and Japan play an important role in the maintenance of peace and stability and the promotion of prosperity in their respective regions. Both our countries share similar approaches towards major international issues. A very good example of our dialogue and cooperation in international fora is the Non-Proliferation and Disarmament Initiative, a 12-member cross-regional coalition seeking to advance global non-proliferation and disarmament goals. Here you can see how like-minded middle power countries, when they act together, have increased leverage over global politics. I have a lot to say, but I don't want to go further into details. We are prepared to cooperate with Japan bilaterally, regionally under our Asia and EU initiative. And we see great potential, complementary potential there, and we will be very happy to discuss ideas and promote further cooperation with Japan in the future. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you to Ambassador Darama for providing information on the Turkey's Asia Initiative and for stimulating our knowledge. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to give the floor to Professor Harukata Takenaka from Japan. First, I would like to briefly introduce him. Professor Harukata Takenaka works at the National Graduate Institute for Policy Studies. He completed his PhD at Stanford University, where I was also visiting professor for a short time. After the pandemic, if possible, I will once again like to visit and eat bagels and drink coffee on the upper floor of the bookstore there. The professor, who is one of the Japan's most prominent academics in his field, has had 5 books and several articles published in English and Japanese. Today, we will listen to his speech titled Free and Open Indo-Pacific, Vision and Japanese Political Institutions. I open the floor to you, Professor, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. I'd like to begin by thanking Professor Dandar and Asia Pacific Research Center of Bankai University for having me this morning. I would also like to thank Ambassador Suzuki and Mr. Nagaoka for encouraging me, of the Japanese Embassy, for encouraging me to make a presentation on our free and open Indo-Pacific. It's my great pleasure to speak in front of distinguished guests and scholar and Turkish people. And hold on. So I'd like to make a presentation on free and open Indo-Pacific. Let me start off by explaining what FOIP is. FOIP is a vision launched by Prime Minister Abe at the TICAD 6 conference in Nairobi in August 2016. Prime Minister Abe aimed at fostering cooperation and development in the Indo-Pacific region. And there are 3 goals. The first goal is promotion values, promotion of establishment of the rule of law, freedom of navigation, and free trade. And the second is economic. Japan tries to achieve economic prosperity in the region. The third is related to security. Japan would like to maintain peace and stability in the region, which is the bedrock for economic development. And here is various projects under free and open Indo-Pacific vision. I will go introduce some of them later. And my presentation has 3 objectives: to describe policies which Japan pursues under the banner of free and open Indo-Pacific. And I will then present FOIP vision marks a watershed in history of post-war formulation of Japanese external policy, in that it combines security and economic policies together. And I demonstrate this has become possible because of domestic political reforms made it possible for Japan to effectively formulate a set of policies under FOIP. So free and open Indo-Pacific vision, as I have already said, Prime Minister Abe launched FOIP vision in a speech at the TICAD conference in Nairobi in 2016. He said, Japan bears the responsibility of fostering the confluence of the Pacific and Indian Oceans and of Asia and Africa into a place that values freedom, the rule of law, and the market economy, free from force or coercion, and making it prosperous. But at this point, Japan did not come up with concrete policies. Prime Minister Abe presented ideas first, and then policies followed. Then Japanese government began to present various policies under the banner of free and open Indo-Pacific visions. So let me confirm key objectives and policies. So as I've said, there are 3 objectives of FOIP: promotion values, economic objective, and security objective. Okay. And So there are two major policies to achieve economic objective. The first is infrastructure development. Japan attaches importance to help other countries to develop quality infrastructure. And here are some concrete projects. East-West corridor, South corridor in ASEAN, bullet train in India, and Northern corridor in East Africa, and so forth. And the other pillar is free trade agreement, CPTPP, Japan-EU Economic Partnership, Japan-US Trade Agreement. And this is just an example of a project in East-West corridor. Its plan is it consists of many projects, but one plan is to replace existing bridges in Myanmar between Maluayan and Kauka Lake. Okay. And the other policies is to achieve peace and stability. And this is to assist other countries to build capacities for maritime law enforcement. And Japan Coast Guard carries out training and provide necessary equipment to other countries to build up their capacities for maritime law enforcement. And the second is cooperation between Japan's self-defense force and armed forces of other countries. And the aim of the second policy is really to protect sea lanes for Japan. That's my understanding. And concrete examples are visiting ports in Southeast Asia and South Asia, joint exercise with other countries, and help other countries to build capacities on various fields such as disaster relief and rescue operations. And this is another one example of joint exercise conducted by United States, Japan, India, and Australia called Malabar. Okay. And the development of FOIP was evolutionary because I've said ideas came first, policies followed ideas. So in the Diplomatic Blue Book of 2017, published by the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs, it really stressed the importance of connecting Asia and Africa, saying it is important to enhance connectivity between Asia and Africa via Indo-Pacific. But the key concept of the current FOIP became apparent with Prime Minister Abe and President Trump summit meeting in November 2017. And two countries agreed with the following three goals: dissemination of common values such as rule of law and freedom of navigation, promotion of economic prosperity through enhanced connectivity, and peace and security through assistance to capacity building for law enforcement for other countries. And by June 2018, the concept had become much more clear. And the three pillars I have already articulated have been clearly stated in the Diplomatic Blue Book for Japan in 2018. Okay. And so let me introduce some of key policies under FOIP. The first is development of infrastructure, and with Japan cooperates with ASEAN and ASEAN countries. And two major projects are East-West Corridor and South Corridor, which is connecting the eastern side and the western side of Indochina Peninsula. And Japan agreed with some of ASEAN countries on Tokyo Strategy in MECO Summit meeting in 2018 to highlight projects which contribute to and promote FOIP. And well, the letters are too small, but we have a number of projects agreed with Cambodia, Laos Republic, Myanmar, Thailand, and Vietnam. And if you look at these two corridors, most of projects are related to improving the connectivity between the eastern side and western side of Indochina Peninsula. Okay. And the other important country is India. And Japan also cooperates with India. We have already had various projects in place when Prime Minister Abe launched FOIP, such as bullet train project cooperation since December 2015, Delhi-Mumbai Industry Corridor, Chennai-Bangalore Industry Corridor, connectivity in northeastern provinces in India. And after launch of FOIP, collaboration between India's own policy initiative called India's Act East Policy and FOIP have been pursued. And we will continue, Japan will continue to cooperate with India for development of northeastern provinces. And also we will start cooperation in third countries such as Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Bangladesh. And we have a continued commitment to such projects as a bullet train project. And the other concrete policy is a free trade agreement. As I've already said, TPP and a comprehensive and progressive agreement on Trans-Pacific Partnership. And Japan entered TPP negotiations in 2013. We concluded the negotiations in 2016, but President Trump decided to withdraw from the agreement. So Japan took initiative to restart negotiations as TPP-11 in May 2017, and we succeeded in concluding the negotiations by January 2018. And we have also succeeded in finishing the negotiations with European Union on free trade agreement, and also with the United States in 2019. Now, let me turn to example of security policies. The first is help other countries to build capacities for maritime law enforcement. Japan has been continuing to provide training and vessels to Southeast Asian countries such as Vietnam, Philippines, and also conducts joint exercise with these countries. And the second important security policy is cooperation between Japan's self-defense force and armed forces of Asian countries. And the Ministry of Defense articulated 3 principles for FOIP in the Defense White Paper in August 2020. Ministry of Defense pursues FOIP to secure access to sea lanes and also prevent unexpected events through confidence building, and contribute to peace and stability in the region through cooperation with other countries. And Japan cooperates with ASEAN countries and has adopted so-called Vientiane Vision 2016 and version 2.0 in 2019. And what we really do is we help them to deal with instability in the region concerning South China Sea. There is a tension is always exists between some ASEAN countries and China over these small islands and coral reefs. And here are some policies for cooperation with ASEAN countries, promoting shared understanding of international norms, help them to help build capacities for disaster relief, transfer equipment, and offer some training and joint exercise. And with India, Japan has been conducting various exercises, such as Malabar, which I have just introduced, and bilateral joint exercises. And Japan and India has agreed to begin meeting of foreign defense ministers, so-called 2+2. We had the first meeting in 2019. And what Japan and India are concerned is to secure and maintain peace in Indian Ocean and secure sea lanes. Right? And this is Malabar 2020, 2+2 in 2019. And why does Japanese pursue and promote FOIP? It reflects changing international structure. economy, it is almost a cliche to refer to rise of China. This is the blue line shown by the development of China. But it is also important to note that India and ASEAN have become economically important powers. And this is GDP share. Again, this is, well, Japan has been going down, but if you could look at India or ASEAN, if you combine them together, they are almost equal to the size of Japan, which means they are important economically. And international security environment has been changing. Again, we note that China is growing military power, but also India has been also on the rise. And this is, yes, again, of course, major issue is the growth of China. It has become a major power, both in terms of economy as well as security, and it has come up with its grand vision called BRI. And there is a tension in South China Sea. And India is very much concerned about Chinese maritime expansion into Indian Oceans. So there are chances and uncertainty. Here are enormous promises of Indo-Pacific, enormous potentials for economic development, but unclear security situation. So Japan pushes FOIP to promote economic development and to mitigate uncertainty and secure sea lanes. And it attaches importance to cooperation with any country in the region and make sure that stability in the region benefits all countries in the region, United States, Australia, India, ASEAN, and China. We are welcome to cooperate with China. And other countries adopt FOIP after we have launched, Japan has launched FOIP, United States since November 2017. ASEAN followed in 2019 with ASEAN Outlook on FOIP. Okay. So let me explain salience of FOIP and political institutions. Now, I'd like to highlight salience of FOIP in terms of Japanese external policy. The most important characteristic is it is comprehensive. This is really the first Japanese initiative in post-war period combining economic and security policies. And it involves diverse ministries. And why Japan has launched such a policy at this point of time? Yes, of course, many people say it is international because of international environment. It is true, but it is not the only reason. And behind the launch of FOIP, we have to note that prime ministerial power Japanese prime minister as an institution have expanded through two reforms since 1990s. This is on the left-hand side, Prime Minister Koizumi. On the right-hand side, Prime Minister Abe with your president. And there are two major reforms, the political reform of 1994 and the administrative reform of 2001. Political reform of 1994 enhanced the power of the prime minister as the head of the LDP or the ruling party. And the administrative reform of 2001 made it possible for the prime minister to formulate policies under his direct control, and it enhanced his capacity to coordinate policies which various ministries are related. And this is the data which shows the growth of the organization supporting prime minister's policy formulation. There's an office called Cabinet Secretariat. You can take it as a prime minister's office. And the number of officers working in this office was below 1,000 before the reform. But now the number of officers in that office are close to 3,000. And this is policy units put under the Cabinet Secretariat to formulate Prime Minister's policies. And before the reform, the policy units were only about 10, meaning that the number of policies formulated by Prime Minister directly were not that large. But now the numbers have steadily grown and it is nearly 40. That means the Prime Minister formulates much more policies under his direct supervision. And since FOIP is a comprehensive policy involving security and economy policies, and which involves many ministries, it needs coordination. And Prime Minister effectively uses various organizations put under his control to formulate economic and security policies necessary to carry out FOIP, such as the Council on Strategy of Infrastructure Development through Economic Cooperation, which handles various infrastructure development. And there is a general headquarters for TPP and the Cabinet Secretariat, which leads free trade agreement negotiation with other countries. And there's National Security Council, which formulates Japanese security policies. And there's headquarters for ocean policies, which kind of coordinate Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force and Japanese Coastal Guard Agency. So to conclude, as I've said, I have described the 3 pillars of FOIP. And FOIP is unprecedented in the history of Japanese external policy in that it is very comprehensive. And I would say it has become possible for our Prime Minister to formulate such a comprehensive policy, and also has become possible for Japan to launch international scale initiative, thanks to the implementation of various domestic reforms. Okay, so many people, when I talk about FOIP, many people question, oh, Mr. Takenaka, why has it been able for has it become possible for Japan to come up with such a proactive policies? Japan has never made such a proactive policies in post-war period. My friends always tell me, Japan has been so passive. Why now? And I say, yes, we have been passive because the Prime Minister did not have so much power to coordinate different ministries, which are really necessary to come up with comprehensive external policies. So this has changed. So you can expect Japan in future to come up with more proactive policies and more dynamic external policies, because now Prime Minister obtained capacity to formulate such a policies. I spoke a minute longer, I'm sorry, Professor Dandar, but this is my end of my presentation. Thank you very much for listening.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sure that we have all learned a lot from the professor's speech entitled Free and Open Indo-Pacific Vision and Japanese Political Institutions. Thank you so much again, sir. Now, it's time for my dear friend and colleague, Professor Dr. Ali Akkemik. I would like to briefly introduce Professor Akkemik. Since 2017, he has been a professor of economics at the Yamaguchi University, Faculty of Economics and Graduate School of East Asian Studies in Japan. He holds a PhD degree from Nagoya University. His research interests include development economics, the Japanese and Chinese economies, industrial policy, and applied general equilibrium modeling. He is the author of Industrial Development in East Asia, a comparative look at Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and Singapore, and Economic and Social History of Japan. Let me show you. This is one of the, I think, most important book written in Turkey about the subject. His recent papers on industrial policies in China and Japan have also been published in various journals and edited volumes. Professor Akkemik will give a talk titled Industrial Development and Industrial Policies in the Age of IR4, Challenge for Turkey and Lessons from Japan Today. Here you are, Professor. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's truly an honor to be here as part of this wonderful event. I'm not an international relations scholar, I'm an economist, so I think that what I'm going to talk about today is probably provide some sort of economics perspective And I believe we will all benefit from that, as I benefit from your presentations. Okay, I'm going to share the slideshow here. Okay, so although the title assumes that there are some explanations for Turkey, actually there is not. I'm going to provide more of an Asian perspective on industrial development and recent industrial policies in East Asia in the age of IR4. IR4 is the fourth industrial revolution. So basically, I'm going to talk about the changing views on industrialization. This is more about the discussion among economists about how we change our view of the industrialization process from the early 1950s onwards. And I'm going to talk a little bit about industrial policies and the recent smart manufacturing and IR4 in Japan and China. I'll talk briefly about what's going on, and then talk a little bit about what's awaiting Turkey in the process in the future as well. So economists have been long discussing about how developing countries can industrialize. Actually, for a long time, industrialization was synonymous to economic development, still today. But our understanding of our traditional view of industrialization has been changing recently, thanks to globalization and more recently IR4. So for a long time, we just assumed that there's a general process where in an agrarian economy starts industrialization through use of active public policies, which we also name industrial policies. And then the maturity, when it matures, like at the advanced economy level, there's more of a service-based economy. And there's a lot of papers, there's a lot of research done on this. It's a large volume, so you can refer to those. What I'm going to talk about is actually how globalization and how IR4, the recent servicification of smart manufacturing, has changed it, and also what kind of challenges it presents to developing economies. So this is what was happening. So there's a very nice paper. I borrowed a lot of this material from Baldwin and Forster 2020 paper. In the traditional industrial policies, the most notorious cases, as you know, are from East Asia, Korea, Singapore, Taiwan, and earlier in Japan. So Professor Dündar wrote, I wrote a book about this, and that is about traditional industrial policies. What is a structural? We talk about the structural change from agriculture to manufacturing. So basically, you're moving people and resources from farms to factories. And then the technological change is mostly about hardware, machines. In Japanese case, you would probably be aware of the famous monozukuri. So monozukuri is more about this kind of technological aspect. But what is happening recently is we see that there is an increasing trend towards servicification of economies, and developing economies also are moving in that direction. Some economists say that there is premature deindustrialization in developing economies. Turkey is one case. And is it good or bad? Well, it depends on how this servicification is taking place. Servicification is a service-based economy. And we also call it post-industrial societal change here. The idea here is the structural changes are such that you're moving now resources from and people from manufacturing or to labs, so from factories to labs and offices. This is what's happening, and the technological changes are no more about hardware, but more about computerization, digitalization, ICT, Internet of Things, and things, high-tech stuff we see nowadays. Probably representative case of this technological change is what we call the SMILE curve and the global value change. This is the SMILE curve. I think you may have heard of this before. It's very popular these days. This shows here the value of a product from early concept to or research period up to the sales and after services. So as you see, manufacturing part of the value chain is the lowest value-added part. So that means, you know, if you're like in the case of Apple, the Foxconn factory in Fujian, China, is not making that much of money for Apple from Apple cell phones. Basically, manufacturing just gives you the least amount of value added. But the earlier research and development, branding, design, and then after that distribution, marketing, these are where the money is coming from. And so this is a clear case where the servicification of the economy is taking place. Now, nowadays it's coming with in the fourth industrial revolution, and the characteristics of IR4 is such is now that basically we are now moving these resources, people and basically money now from even labs to IR4 services, and the technological change is happening in robotics, AI, as you see, machine learning, big data. The previous industrialization processes, the industrial policies are happening in also in developing countries. This servicification to some extent is happening also in some promising developing countries, but IR4 is only a kind of success story only for a few handful of the advanced economies and plus China. So what IR4 has done is that the IR4 transformed not only our lives, but also how manufacturing and services are also taking place. And we see that there's increasing number of robots being used. And if you are in a country where robotics and the development of robotics sector or the technological change, the industries here, AI, if you're lagging, then life is going to be very, very difficult in the decades to come. So IR4 is transforming economies in a way that, first of all, this is also happening at the time where globalization is also rapidly progressing. What used to be not tradable has become tradable. So for a long time in economics, we assumed that most services cannot be traded. Actually, almost all services are tradable nowadays, thanks to all these technological changes. And as for the technology transfer, we also assumed in the past, for example, I'm going to talk about this actually in the next slide, but maybe it's time. So FDI from the advanced economies to the developing economies in the past focused on repetitive processes, like labor-intensive processes. So now there's robotics, and AI have made it much less costly for the advanced economies, and there's no actually kind of merit for the developing economy trying to attract this kind of FDI anymore. So IR4 and the recent structural transformation it brings about is definitely going to affect the relations between advanced economies and developing economies also in this aspect. We cannot easily offshore this kind of repetitive task anymore. Robots can do that much better than factories in Indonesia using Indonesian labor. So this is a challenge for developing economies. But don't forget that IR4 is also providing opportunities for developing economies. I'm talking about developing economies. I'm putting Turkey in this category too. This technology is also it also makes technology transfer faster and cheaper. All you need is a fast internet. That's it. So you can transfer so many things a lot faster than before and also cheaper than before. But don't forget that here in this case you need the human resources who is capable of absorbing these and using these, utilizing these new technologies. So in this case, technology transfer is made up of two components, imitation and innovation. Some countries are very good at innovation. See, Japan is the case. Some countries are very good at imitation. China is doing both at the same time. So how much of your resources you want to allocate to imitation, how much to innovation? That is a big question mark for developing economies. And for any developing country, including Turkey, this is the biggest policy challenge. And state capacity is very, very important in realizing all these gains. Okay, so I talked a lot, so let me give you some numbers. Here we see that services have become more important in the global economy. And if you look at three countries here, USA, UK, and the Netherlands, you see that they're running a trade surplus in services while they're running a trade deficit in merchandise exports, merchandise goods. So in Asian countries, it's the opposite. There's a trade deficit in services, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and trade surplus in merchandise. So basically, this also draws some clear picture about what kind of division of labor is happening in the world economy. Well, there's the case of China and India. China is producing hardware, India is producing services, basically. So this is what's happening. And in Turkey, you see it's on the right, it's on the rightmost side. We are pretty much like Asian countries, but we are already running a huge trade deficit. But Turkey, thanks to services, especially tourism, as Altay already mentioned, we are having some sort of trade surplus. So if you want to really offset some of the trade deficit coming from merchandise, probably services, especially through the high value added services, which I mentioned before, can be an opportunity. But again, this capacity is the main challenge here. Okay, so if you look at these numbers, I got these numbers from International Federation of Robotics. Interestingly, Turkey is not in the data. So you can see where countries are here. So we see nowadays people talking a lot about China, the importance of robots being put into factory production in China. But China is actually kind of lagging behind Japan, US, and Germany. And number one is Singapore. So the robot intensity is the highest in Singapore, next Korea. Japan is number 3, Germany. The home country of IR4 is Germany, is ranked number 4. So the fact that Turkey is not here, that shows you where you are actually. So we need to go a long distance. And as I mentioned before, it can be a threat and an opportunity depending on where you look at it from. Okay, so servicification, as I said, it's very important, and you can also see this from some other rankings. This is the ranking for top 10 brands in the world from 2000 to 2018. The red ones are actually the new coming service sectors, service firms, and the blue ones are which already existed before, mainly entertainment and IT companies. So basically, services are also making a huge progress in brand making. So more service companies have become also brand makers. And if you look at again another ranking here, the top 50 companies in the world. So Altay mentioned Turkish case. I'm going to look at the global one. Here, Forbes Global 2000, the market values of firms, if you look at the top 10 firms, 7 of them are actually service companies. And a lot more in the top 2000 if you look at the list, and there are so many service companies. And interestingly, China is quite dominant in the list. So we have a large audience here, and many of us, some of us are from Japan. So I would like to give you also very interesting picture here. This one is Fortune Global 500, the list of firms in top. I took on the top 100. And in 1995, the heyday of Japanese economy, although it was in a recession at that time, you see that there were so many Japanese companies, just 6 in top 10, right? Just 6 in top 10. But this, the number of Japanese companies have been decreasing over the years. And now we see a smaller number of Japanese companies. So that means there's actually a lot of competition within Asia. From for Japan, the competitors would be Korea and China. Okay, I know that we have little time, so I will just skip so many things here, but I'm open to discussion after that. And Here, in the IR4 and servicification, what do we get if you look at Japan? In this case, IR4 is a German invention. The Japanese application of this is actually from Abenomics. Abenomics actually is an economic big master plan, but part of Abenomics is about transforming the society using the new technologies, creating some sort of a cyber society kind of. This is called Society 5.0, and you can get this here. I got this from the Japanese government's website. You can see in the middle, in the circle, how societies are transforming. And Society 5.0 is the next generation society. And you can see here in the explanation below the figure, the new technologies of the fourth industrial revolution is an essential part of Society 5.0. So more details are here. So that means IR4 is taken very, very seriously in Japan. Actually, Japan is a forerunner. And Abenomics is this is how the system Abenomics, the whole system works out. But you can see the revitalization of the Japanese economy after a long recession. It looks like it's going to be through fourth industrial revolution. And this is happening at the time where Japanese industries are hollowing out. So we are talking about industrialization of the prospects of industrialization for developing economies, but also we should also look at the deindustrialization in Japan. Most of the automobile industry production by Japanese firms, more than half, is done overseas. And just a little of domestic production is actually for domestic demand. Okay, I'm going to skip this. We talked about this before. And my final point would be, although I have more slides, I will just cut it short. When we are talking about the needs, the recent trends, governments are not just watching what markets are doing. Governments are very active, and by governments I mean the IR4 leading economies: U.S., Japan, China, Germany. All of these governments are dealing with the process in some way. Japan has the science and technology plans. China has its own industry policies. They name it Made in China 2025. And if you look at this graph, the industry policy, the discussion in industry policy was intense. This is from Google Books. So there was more of the US industry policy in the early 1980s. It's been decreasing. But if you look at industry policy, if you search industry policy in China, it's been increasing. So we are interested in what's going on in industry policies in China. And not only because China is although it is considered a developing economy, it's probably the only developing economy by statistical means who is also a forerunning leading IR4 economy. Okay, and now that it's back on the stage, industry policy returns. Now the China's ambitious industry policies are also urging us that there may be something to learn from the recent rise of China. I would like to draw your attention to Made in China 2025 project plan. This is this slide. If you're interested, you can take a look at it later. It shows you how industry policies are evolving in China. Actually, one thing to mention here is that they learned from Japan in the 1980s, and then now they are challenging Japan. And the Made in China 2025 program is enormous. I mean, if you look at the targets in the official document, then you're going to it's amazing. These are some targets. These are some targets. So in Turkey, we like the word yerli ve milli. Everything should be domestic and homemade, right? We want to be like everything made in Turkey. The big, huge IR4 things. China also has the same discussion among Chinese economists. We can see they are discussing this, but their plan is, it seems to be like they really want to I don't know how to put this. I want to choose the right words, but they want to just kind of expel foreign firms from China and kind of build a capacity where they can make everything on their own. Because China is #1 in cell phone production, but the chips are coming from America. So they want to be able to also produce all those chips. This is just an example, but there are so many things here. You can see the targets, robots, and all kinds of new technologies here. The Chinese government has put it very clearly that they want to achieve this, and that is the reason why, if you read the between the lines in official documents, when there was this intense tension, the tension in between America and China in about trade issues, about technology things, from 2016 up to today. You can see that a lot of the discussion actually is built on the Chinese industrial policies, because China wants to develop its own domestic. China wants to be a technology superpower in the world, and that means the previous dominance of foreign firms in China, it has to be reversed, and it is happening. China's dependence on foreign technologies is decreasing, and of course, it will bring some frictions with not only these firms but also their respective governments, and this is what's happening. Okay, this would be my point from an international relations point of view, although I'm not an expert on that. You can see so many things going on. Chinese firms, which are actually backed by Chinese government, are buying technology companies in Germany, United States, and it is very clear what China is trying to do, and you can see it very well. If you look at what kind of funds have been created, what kinds of policies are being implemented, how China is trying to become a technology superpower. Basically, what China is doing is playing the game according to the rules of the game, but getting reaping the benefits on the most of the benefits for its own purposes. So that would be the end of my discussion. And if you want to look at where we are, and if you want to see where Turkey is, you can probably look at this graph here. Turkey is, a lot of people probably don't know this. We always talk about, China becoming like a huge technological power, but Turkey and China have the same. This is the number for researchers in R&D per 1 million people. We have the same figures for China. So basically where China is, we are there. We tend to look at research and development expenditures as % of GDP. Turkey is far, far lagging behind, that's for sure. But we have human resources as good as China, relatively. So basically, once you have resources, and if you're not getting the same result, there is inefficiency. So the problem for Turkey would be inefficiency. And I'm not going to go into details, but everybody knows what's going on in Turkey, all these political things. And once we can come up with some stability in the country, I believe Turkey is going to be one of these lines which is going upwards. Right, so that ends my presentation. And one day, I hope, before I get old, I want to see Turkey in this graph, where we are somewhere above South Korea, probably below Japan. But I want to see Turkey in a position where we become one of the major economies in the world, hopefully. Okay, thank you very much for your patience. Okay, I have some more graphs, but I don't have time. So thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor Akkemik. We thank esteemed Professor Akkemik for the important information he has provided. Thank you so much. Finally, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Nagaoka Kansuke, but first, let me introduce him briefly. Mr. Nagaoka is with us today as an important official. He currently works as the Japanese Ministry of Foreign Affairs Deputy Director General, Deputy Assistant Minister. Today, we will listen to his extremely important talk under the title of Japan's view of the Middle East problem. Dear Mr. Nagaoka, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Dunda. Thank you very much for organizing today's online seminar. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the Asia Pacific Research Center for its dedicated research activities on the region, as well as its close collaboration with the Embassy of Japan. Although my presentation's title is Japan's view of the Middle East problem, but I will try to make the tone of the presentation as positive as possible. For the next 15 minutes or so, I'd like to talk about, first of all, foreign policy towards the Middle East region and its characteristics, and then our engagement with the Palestinian issues, Iran and Iraq, and finally, I will share with you my ideas as to how Japan and Turkey will further cooperate in addressing the regional challenges in the post-COVID era. Obviously, the basic role of the Japanese Foreign Ministry is to deepen political, economic, and other relations with other countries in the world, including the Middle East. In addition, we are committed to make efforts and contributions to realize peace and stability in the region, and this has been one of the policy pillars in our foreign policy for a long period of time. Here, you may ask yourselves, why does Japan, being situated thousands of miles away from the region, have to make such diplomatic efforts? And I have three answers to respond to this question. First of all, peace and stability in the region is very much closely connected with Japan's national security. Japan imports virtually all the fossil fuel that it needs from overseas. As you can see in this slide, Japan depends on the region for 90% of its petroleum needs and about 20% of natural gas needs. Securing stable supply of these natural resources is equivalent to ensuring not just Japan's economic security, but even national security. In 1973, during the Fourth Arab-Israel War, or Yom Kippur War, certain Arab countries imposed restrictions on the oil exports, aiming to obtain political support to their cause. As a result, Japan got into a sort of panic, and its economic activities were disrupted to a large extent. Although almost half a century has passed since then, such risk remains even today. And to secure a stable supply of natural resources, we need to maintain not just stability of the producing countries, but also safety of the maritime route to Japan. In 2019, a number of incidents took place around the Strait of Hormuz and in Saudi Arabia at the time when tension was being escalated between the Trump administration and Iran. In response to these developments, we decided to dispatch a naval ship and the patrol aircraft of our self-defense forces to the Gulf of Oman, the northern part of the Arabian Sea, and the Gulf of Aden for information gathering purposes. Yes. This is how our self-defense forces are being engaged in that part of the world. And this is one of our own efforts to ensure safety of the maritime transportation. The second reason is our determination to extend cooperation to tackle issues of international concern, such as fight against terrorism and non-proliferation of WMD, weapons of mass destruction. Being the only country in the world that has suffered atomic bomb, Japan has led the international efforts of WMD non-proliferation in a consistent manner, and it is quite natural for us to make appropriate contributions to address the Iranian nuclear issues and others in the region. With regard to the terrorist activities, including those of Daesh or ISIL, some Japanese citizens were among the victims. While ISIL's control is being weakened in Syria and Iraq, they may gradually trying to be more active in other parts of the world, and we have recognized such a phenomenon in a neighborhood of Southeast Asian countries. In fact, a violent clash erupted between a certain member of terrorists loyal to ISIL and the local security authority in the island of Mindanao, the Philippines, which has resulted in more than 1,000 of civilian casualties. And Japan is one of the top 5 donors that provide assistance to 10 countries in the Middle East. Being one of the major donors, we are always keen to make appropriate contribution to resolve development and humanitarian difficulties. And this is a third reason for our diplomatic efforts to the region. The development and humanitarian assistance we provide can support confidence building among the parties to conflicts, address root causes behind the terrorism, and eventually lead to realizing peace and stability of the entire world. Regional countries welcome Japan's diplomatic efforts to realize peace and stability, partly because they all maintain close and friendly relations with us, partly because we, unlike some European countries, do not have a negative legacy of the past. On our end, we have been pursuing to make creative and regional contributions. And now I'm going to introduce you some of these contributions in the cases of Palestinian issues, Iran, and Iraq. So first of all, with this peace process, since the Oslo Accord in 1993, Japan has provided more than 2.1 billion of assistance to Palestinians. There are 2 bridges over the Jordan River, Allenby Bridge in the south and Sheikh Hussein Bridge in the north, and we rehabilitated both of them in the 1990s, so that they are now being used for transportation of goods and people. At that time, we also intended to build an airport in the Gaza Strip, but unfortunately we had to abandon it due to security and other reasons. As illustrated by these examples, Japan, since early days, has been very keen to connect the West Bank and Gaza with the rest of the region and beyond, even if they are under the Israeli occupation, and to energize an underdeveloped Palestinian economy. Along this sort of thinking, we launched the concept of Corridor for Peace and Stability, peace and Prosperity in 2004. This aims to galvanize activities of Palestinian private sector by helping their products to be exported to Jordan and then to the regional and international markets. As a flagship project of this strategy, we have built an agro-industrial park in Jericho, very close to the Allenby Bridge. As you can see in this slide, the site of the industrial park, before we launched the project, was nothing but a wasteland with no access to electricity and water. However, sustained efforts for the last 15 years or so start to show some tangible outcomes. Today, more than 30 Palestinian companies have signed contracts with the developer of the industrial park, and almost half of them have already been operational. There are some other donors supporting industrial parks in the West Bank, and the one in Jericho, supported by us, has been most successful so far. And on the left-hand side, you see examples of the products that are being produced in Jericho Agro-Industrial Park, including the soap and soda and some medical, pharmaceutical products. In addition, we started another unique endeavor in 2013 called CPAD, or Conference on the Cooperation among East Asian Countries for Palestinian Development. This new framework of cooperation intends to share experience of East Asian countries' recent economic development with Palestinians and to encourage them to invest in the Palestinian economy. CPAD has been working quite well, and member countries, including Indonesia, Malaysia, and Vietnam, have become more enthusiastic about their assistance to Palestinians. For instance, Indonesia's financial contributions to UNRWA has doubled between 2013 and 2020, and Thailand, Vietnam, and Brunei started to make their contributions to UNRWA for the first time since they joined CPAD. I am confident to say that these and other sorts of efforts have gained trust and respect from both Israelis and Palestinians. Japan has been repeatedly calling on the two parties to refrain from any action that would undermine the peace process and to resume direct talks with a view to reactivate the peace process. On the basis of their trust, we sometimes deliver rather strong messages to the parties. And I believe that the sincere cooperation that has been established over the long years adds certain weight in such messages. Next, Iran. Before the Islamic Revolution in 1979, many Japanese companies operated in Iran, and immediately before the revolution, more than 7,000 Japanese nationals worked in various cities there. For the last 4 decades, the environment surrounding Iran has always been very severe, facing one challenge after another, including the revolution, the war with Iraq, and international sanctions. Nonetheless, Japanese companies have always valued good relations with Iran, and the two governments have similarly taken significant care in developing the bilateral relations. As Japan keeps such a good relations with Iran for a long period of time, and also maintains alliance with the United States, we believe that we can make our own role in resolving Iran-related issues, including the nuclear one. This is why, in June 2019, the former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe made an official visit to Iran for the first time in 40 years as Japanese Prime Minister. The decision by Trump administration to withdraw from the nuclear agreement, JCPOA, and to reinstate economic sanctions against Iran have certainly escalated the tension in the region. Under these difficult circumstances, Prime Minister called on Supreme Leader Khamenei and President Rouhani to play a constructive role in reducing the tension, maintaining the implementation of the nuclear agreement, and realizing regional stabilization. In response to this, Supreme Leader Khamenei clearly expressed that Iran has no intention at all to possess or produce a nuclear bomb. President Rouhani also says that Iran does neither want war nor to pursue to discard the JCPOA. In 2019, there took place 3 summit meetings between our Prime Minister and the Iranian President, including the latter's visit to Japan. And we made energetic diplomatic efforts to reduce the tension and to maintain the nuclear agreement. In 2020, Iran was the first country in the region to be affected by COVID-19 and one of the most severely hit so far. As Iran was facing such difficulties, Japan, as an old friend, provided emergency assistance worth $34 million. We also pushed the World Bank to extend a loan for WHO for its support to Iran. As you are well aware, Biden administration has made it clear that if Iran abides by its obligation under JCPOA, they will also return to the agreement. However, the recent situation looks like a stalemate where it is unclear which side should take a first step. Despite the fact that we are not a party to JCPOA, we remain committed to make meaningful contributions to resolve all outstanding issues related to Iran, using our unique position based on the friendly relations with Iran and the Japan-US ally. Next, I'm talking about assistance to Iraq. Just like Iran, a great number of Japanese companies have been active in Iraq since the 1970s. At that time, they were engaged with many important infrastructure projects such as roads, power plants, and hospitals. And thanks to these projects, as well as the high quality of Japanese products, Iraqi people developed closeness and respect towards Japan and its people. After the Iraq War of 2003, the Japanese Self-Defense Forces sent its ground troops to overseas for the first time of its history, and they operated their mission in Samawa, one of the southern provinces, for 2.5 years. They were not engaged with combat operations, but rather concentrated in reconstruction of the local community, and this helped further raise a sense of trust and closeness of the Iraqi people toward Japan. Since 2003, as you can see in this picture, Japan has provided more than $60 billion assistance to Iraq, including rehabilitation of a number of infrastructures that Japanese companies previously constructed. Implementation of these and other assistance projects have not been easy at all due to many challenges, including unstable security situation, which is very slow in improving, and the delay in administrative procedures on the part of the Iraqi side. Nonetheless, we are able to complete a lot of projects, such as the rehabilitation of Qasr port, a major port in Iraq, expansion of sewage plant in Baghdad, and electricity transmission of distribution plants in KRG. In the post-war Iraq, while parliamentary democratic system started to be established gradually, antagonism among different religious sects and ethnic groups remains so deep-rooted that members of the parliament have not yet been able to act as true representatives of citizens. In this regard, my government invited a certain number of parliamentarians from different sects and ethnicities to Japan, where they participated in seminars to discuss how to overcome their differences of political position and to reach national reconciliation. And we organized such seminars 9 times since 2007. And finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about the ways in which Japan and Turkey can further cooperate for peace and stability in the Middle East. As a regional power and member of G20, Turkey is naturally expected to play an important role to realize peace and stability in this region, using its geographical, political, economic, and cultural influences. Over the decades, Turkey has consolidated a democratic system which has enabled change in government through elections. Being a relatively young country with more than half of its population under the age of 34, Turkey has also succeeded in significantly growing its economy for the last 2 decades. Turkey is the first and only Muslim country that has started EU accession negotiation. Against this backdrop, Turkey has made a number of important contributions in the region. For instance, Turkey is now accepting as many as 3.6 million Syrian refugees. They are not treated as temporary residents, but the Turkish government provides social security services and vocational training, which means that it tries to provide as much assistance as possible to enable the refugees to be accommodated in the Turkish society, and we highly appreciate such assistance. Turkey is indeed a reliable partner with Japan in the region, and we have already done certain specific cooperation in the past. For example, Japan funded a project in which 500 Afghan policemen were annually sent to Turkey to receive necessary training. We have also provided $400 million assistance to Turkey to support its relief activities for the Syrian refugees. In the health sector, Başakşehir Chak and Sakura City Hospital, a landmark of our cooperation, has accommodated a number of patients with COVID-19 infection since early stage. I strongly believe that there are many opportunities to seek further cooperation between Japan and Turkey. As Ambassador Darama mentioned earlier, Turkish construction companies are well respected and active in the region, and will be able to make a valuable partnership for reconstruction projects in countries that are suffering from conflicts. Turkey is also engaged with a similar industrial park project in Jenin as the one we are supporting in Jericho, and it is useful to share lessons learned from each experience and to address common challenges, including how to incentivize Palestinian SMEs to invest in the industrial parks and how to further facilitate logistics between the West Bank and Jordan. I and my colleagues in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Tokyo are always willing to discuss how to materialize these ideas and to deepen our cooperation in the Middle East region, Africa, Central Asia, and other regions. I stop here and thank you very much for your kind attention.
On behalf of us all, I would like to extend the sincerest thanks to Mr. Nagaoka. He has provided us with very utterly important and remarkable information about Japan's view of the Middle East problem. I would like to mention that we will have a workshop first, but later we make an international symposium about the Turkey's Asian NEU initiative. It will be on the 26th and 27th of May. So it will focus again Asia and Turkey again. And one of the most important speaker will be Ambassador Darama at this symposium, I mean workshop also. Yes, actually in our program we don't have any question and answer session. So we collect your all questions and we will send these questions to the speakers. And I mentioned before, we will publish this panel as a book, which is will be written in Turkish and English. So maybe the prominent speakers will answer your questions in their papers. So I would like to give the floor to Professor Esenbel for a brief remark about this panel. And she is the, how can I say it, as far as I know, the first Japanese Turkish historian focused on Japan. So I would like to give the floor to Selçuk Sensei. Hocam buyurunuz lütfen.
So, well, thank you so much for this very exciting and inspirational panel, I should say, because as somebody who was born probably before all of you and lived in Japan before you were born, I know Japan right after the Second World War. And this is the most exciting foreign policy initiative that I've ever heard coming from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Japan, the Indo-Pacific Initiative. I've been following it over the last few years, and I find it to be very innovative and very futuristic oriented. This is where the world is evolving. In other words, in our part of the world, unfortunately, public opinion is not following what's happening in the world since the last 20 years, which is the rise of Asia. And this, of course, now is a consequence. In other words, it basically is a consequence of what has been happening economically, socially, technologically, scientifically, and culturally. So I'm all for it, frankly, as an historian, because I'm a specialist of Japan's modern history and also Japanese-Turkish relations. And I believe in the case of Turkey that this development is very important and we should have a vision there. We should have a role there because why? It makes sense economically. It certainly makes sense in terms of security, technology, but above all else, it makes sense because it will be in the future a community of values. Values are very important. Globalization, there was a moment in globalization where values were dismissed. As long as you could get your production in some part of the world, cost benefit, you know, values, it didn't matter. But I think from now on, it's not just the fourth industrial revolution, it's also a return to an international order of values. Because without that, you cannot have global stability and you cannot have global security. It's as simple as that. You need enough countries that share, roughly speaking, the same values in terms of freedom, a rule of law, cooperation, stability, harmony, so that the world order will be stable. It's not just a romantic ideal that I'm talking about. So in other words, I truly thank everybody for this fantastic panel, which has been inspirational. And I look forward to participating in the workshop and or any of the other activities. And I will also send information about our Asian Studies Center and our master's program in Asian Studies that we have developed in Boğaziçi University, which is truly now the Center for Asian Studies in Istanbul. So, thank you very much for the speakers and for the participation.
Thank you very much, Esenbel Sensei. So I would like to show you my latest book. This will be published in 1 month in Japanese. We can say that Turkish history in Japan. Yes, today we have been lucky enough to meet with 5 luminaries from Turkey and Japan. In the international panel titled New World in the Post-COVID Period, Perception from Turkey and Japan. We have all absorbed information that cannot easily be obtained elsewhere. I would like to extend my sincere thanks to all of the participants. This meeting has been recorded and will be posted on APAM's website and YouTube channel shortly. This speech will also be published in Turkish and English, and PDF versions will be available free of charge on APAM's website. Once again, I would like to thank all of the speakers, the audience, the Embassy of Japan, and His Excellency Ambassador Suzuki. I also want to thank Dr. Yalçın Kayalı, Vice Director of APAM, Dr. Nurda Kayalı, Ms. Aysun Harper, Mr. Stephen Harper for their technical supports, and Nagamura Yuta from the Japanese Embassy. And lastly, I would like to thank myself for my great moderation. So I wish you all healthy and COVID-free days. Thank you very much and hope to see you again, inshallah. どうもありがとうございました。本当にありがとうございます。İnşallah tekrar iyi günlerde görüşmek üzere diyorum. Thank you so much and have a good day.
よろしくお願いします。どうもありがとうございます。
これからもよろ
お
しくお願いし
元気で、お元気で。
ます。気をつけてください。Bye bye.
Bye.
I will write later to the all speakers for the book chapter. Sizleri efendim tekrardan daha sonra rahatsız edeceğim. Belki bu soruları da cevaplarsınız paperlarınızda. Tekrardan iletişim kuracağım. Çok teşekkür ediyorum katıldığınız için. Thank you so much. どうもありがとうございました。まだよろしくお願いします。どうもありがとうございます。
Teşekkür ederiz.
Çok teşekkür ederiz. Görüşmek üzere.
Teşekkür ederim. Çok sağ olunuz. Çok teşekkürler.
Herkese iyi akşamlar.
İyi akşamlar.
İyi akşamlar.
Evet.